The Golden State Warriors made a big trade this summer, bringing in Chris Paul in exchange for Jordan Poole. The move was a bit of a head scratcher at the time because it's not every day you trade a young 24-year-old with a lot of upside for a 38-year-old injury-prone player. The addition of Chris Paul joining the trio of Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson comes with a considerable list of potential pros and cons. But if the Warriors can utilize Paul correctly, they could be back in business. The Warriors have a trick up their sleeve. And today, we'll talk about it. What's going on, everyone? It's Luka here, back with another video. In this one, I'm going to be talking about the Golden State Warriors and how I think they're going to utilize Chris Paul and why this thing might actually work and the Warriors might be back better than ever. If you guys can do me a solid favor, hit a like on the video and please subscribe to the channel. For more Warriors and NBA content just like this, help me hit 33K on this channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. While many people dislike the move for acquiring Chris Paul, there are others who think this Chris Paul Warriors experiment will work out well. You have an opportunity to get a Hall of Fame player in Chris Paul. Even though when you look at his body of work, maybe his teams and his personal style has been a little different than the style would be in Golden State. But it's a player who is hungry to win. It's not going to be about him. It's going to be about the team and doing what it takes for the team to win. I think it's a great move, and I think he'll blend in wonderfully. This is what Jay Bilas told NBC Sports Bay Area last month. This will likely be Chris Paul's last stop of his career. The 38-year-old is not a top 5 player anymore, not a top 20 player anymore. Expectations are that he will perform at a high level, but not as a starter, and not averaging 30+ minutes per game as he typically did in the past. Chris Paul could be the Golden State Warriors' next sixth man. And the good thing about Paul joining the Warriors is he won't have to alter anything he has done throughout his career. He's one of the smartest players in NBA history, and that high basketball IQ will serve him well on a team with bona fide champions. This reminds me of when Shaun Livingston was with the Warriors playing behind Curry. Livingston was at his own pace and was never asked to do more than what his body could deliver. Chris Paul is similar where he's a really good playmaker, dissects defenses with the right passing and playmaking abilities, and his go-to is that mid-range jumper. And we know Livingston made a living with that mid-range jig. Chris Paul will be a better version of what Shaun Livingston was in this situation. What the Warriors are counting on is quality experience. I mean, you have 4 future Hall of Famers on this team. 3 have won multiple titles, and 1 is hungry to win his first. Make no mistake about it, the Warriors have an abundance of riches. They could potentially have 4 Hall of Fame players on the roster this year. Bilas said, that's pretty good. I don't know who would say, nah, not interested in that. Now, for those of you thinking that Chris Paul could start, it does seem somewhat unlikely that Coach Steve Kerr will start both Chris Paul and Stephen Curry in Golden State's backcourt, given their size and defensive limitations. So if Paul does indeed come off the bench, which is what I think will happen here, it'll be something brand new in Chris Paul's career. To this point in his career, Chris Paul has played in 1,214 regular season games, and he has come off of the bench 0 times. So needless to say, shifting to a reserve role would be a major adjustment for Chris Paul. For the time being though, Chris Paul is taking a wait-and-see approach when it comes to his new role with his new squad, and he seems open-minded. He said this, at the end of the day, it's basketball. I'm going into a situation with a bunch of guys who've been playing together for a long time. I'm not as worried about it as everybody else is. We'll figure all of that stuff out at camp. You don't have the answers right now. We'll practice, and I'm sure there will be things I've got to learn about them. They've got to learn about me, but that's the case with any team. So Chris Paul seems open to the idea of being flexible with this thing. Whether the Warriors do have him come off the bench, I think that's going to work wonderfully for them. Or if the Warriors feature Chris Paul as a starter, of course, Chris Paul will be ready for that as well. But ultimately, even if Chris Paul doesn't start, that doesn't mean he won't play major minutes or a major role down the stretch in games. It will likely be a situational thing, and it will be up to Steve Kerr to figure out how to best utilize his newest piece in Chris Paul. Overall, there is a lot of upside to Chris Paul being on the Warriors. The experience and talent he brings, even at 38 years old, will help this Warriors team be better. The biggest thing is if Chris Paul can stay healthy for a full season, especially come playoff time. But if Chris Paul's new role is from off the bench, that should help him stay fresh over the course of the season. And worst case, if this experiment with Chris Paul doesn't work, his contract is not guaranteed next year. so there's little long-term risk. And Jordan Poole's fit with the Warriors seemed to have run its course, and the vibes clearly weren't good with he and Draymond Green. The Warriors should also get some help out of their free agent signings in Dario Saric and Corey Joseph, and the biggest boost will likely come from the young wings looking to take that next step in Moses Moody and, of course, Jonathan Kuminga. The Warriors' window to win championships is right now. At first, I wasn't a fan of the trade for Chris Paul, I'll be honest, because like many, I was questioning why the Warriors would trade away youth with somebody who's about to retire and whose best days are behind him. But the Warriors are trying to strike while the iron is hot. They got Stephen Curry, who's still playing like an MVP candidate. Klay Thompson showed us signs last season that he's back. Draymond is still the anchor of this team. And Andrew Wiggins will be fresh for this new season. And now you will have Chris Paul, who is hungry to win. Chris Paul wants to win a championship, and this may be the best opportunity he's ever had to do so. That's a lot of experience and veteran play the Warriors have, and that stuff is going to come in handy in a playoff series. So I'm not quick to say this Warriors team will be a championship contender, but they could have a trick up their sleeve with Chris Paul, and depending on how they utilize him, I think that will get the most out of this team. And you never know. Just when you think this team is done, just when you count out this team, they could be back with a chance to make a run. So we will see how this Chris Paul experiment works in Golden State. I trust that the Warriors know what they're about to do with him. I trust that they do have a vision, and I do think Chris Paul will help elevate the Warriors. I think this is something that's going to take time, but as Steve Kerr figures out what he ultimately wants to do with his lineups, anytime you add a guy like Chris Paul, it's going to help your basketball team in one way or another. So the Golden State Warriors, we'll see how they operate with Chris Paul now there. Seeing him play with the likes of Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, it's going to get some time to get used to it, but who would have thought that all of these guys would be on the same team? But what do you guys think of the Chris Paul move? Do you think the Warriors have a trick up their sleeve? Do you think they're going to make this work, Warriors fans? What are your expectations for Chris Paul in a Warriors uniform? And what are your expectations for the Warriors this season? Do you think they have enough to compete in the West? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Again, guys, hit a like on the video. It does help a ton. And please subscribe to the channel for more Warriors and NBA content just like this. That is it for me. This is Lucas signing off. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all again in the next video.